Life has many challenges. One of the most difficult challenges can be the loss of a loved one.
Yeah, that's true. But when you lose a parent, for many, the heartbreak can be even more difficult to overcome. So a new book titled Always Too Soon takes a look at celebrities who have lost parents and how they got through the pain. We want to welcome author Allison Gilbert to the show.
Thank you so much.
Allison.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Why did you want to approach celebrities about the loss?
Well, it came from a very personal experience. I lost both of my parents by the time I was 31. And while, of course, it's a universal experience, when you're going through it, it feels so lonely. You feel like nobody else is possibly going through it, too. So I reached out to who I thought would best capture that experience. And, of course, there are some regular people in the book and also people who we all recognize. And I thought that was the best way of tackling what is actually a very difficult issue.
Yeah, people who we all recognize, Ice-T being one of those people. And he talked about losing his parents at a very young age, third grade. 7th grade.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He was 7 and 11 by the time he lost both of his parents. And then he was shuttled between different households. No one wanted to take care of him. He turned cold, which is why he was called Ice for so long. But what's really interesting about his experience, we all see him on NBC's Law and Order. We all have seen him as a rapper. He's taken all of that horrible experience when he was young, all of the cold experiences when it came from when he was so going through all those life changes when we're a kid, and he's used those to his advantage, and he used all of it for his art, and it's made him stronger. So I found his chapter to be one of the most evocative and the most compelling and really the most healing.
And they are told like stories. I mean, how did you didn't interview them. Did you just ask them to write about it, or how did it happen?
No, I actually did interview. Every single person in the book, Always Too Soon, I did interview. The hardest part was actually getting them to sit down for the interview. If you're a celebrity, whether you're Roseanne Cash, Ice-T, Geraldine Ferraro, any of these people I interviewed for the book, they don't need my book as a vehicle to promote their career. This was such a personal, intimate topic that to get them to sit down with me was challenging, because you had to convince them this is something that we all need to hear. It's a universal topic, but how did it affect you? How did you become different from the experience? What made you stronger as a result? So yeah, over 3 years, I sat down, talked to all of these people who had very, very different stories. Some people, like Ice-T, were very young when the loss happened, and some people were much, much older. The oldest person in the book is Yogi Berra, who is now 81 years old. Wow. So there's a really wide variety of people and different reasons for their loss. Some people, it was sudden, and for other people, it was over a prolonged period of time.
And for Roseanne Cash, it was a very public loss of her father, Johnny.
Oh, she was a fabulous interview. You're right. Johnny Cash is her father. And for her, separating the private grief that she felt for her own dad, a very personal experience, from the legend, Johnny Cash, was a huge burden for her. She felt that she couldn't even walk down the streets of New York City and not look at the headlines on the newsstand, because that's not just the legend, that's her father. And so for her now, the struggle, like all of us, how do you keep the memory of your father alive for your own children? And for her, it's especially difficult, because of course it's easy to tell her about Johnny Cash. We all know who Johnny Cash is, but who is Johnny Cash, the grandfather?
Right. I know she said for a long time she couldn't listen to his music.
She couldn't listen to his music because for some reason it felt to her the public appropriated part of the grief, that they felt they owned that sadness for her. But no, for her, it was still her father, still the grandfather of her own children, and she had to really navigate how to find peace in that very difficult dynamic.
Now, for some of the people you approached, they kindly turned you down, saying, it's just too tough for me to deal with and even talk to in an interview situation. And I wondered how you were able to deal with it, because you had to deal with this for a few years as you're putting the whole thing together.
I found it to be incredibly healing for me personally, and that's what I wanted the book to be for the people who now are able to read it. I felt that when I lost my parents, there wasn't a book out there that would help me get through the process. There were, of course, books about losing your mom or losing your dad, but about both, I thought it was so different. That connection to your childhood is gone. You have to do a lot of things that you don't have to do when you have one parent left. You really have to work harder at sibling relationships and keeping those ties close. And I thought that book wasn't around, and certainly from the vantage point of real people. That's what Always Too Soon is. It's not from clinical social workers. It's not from grief experts. It's not from anyone professionally related to the grief community, so to speak. These are just real people and how they got through this very difficult and very intimate experience.
Real help for real people.
Yeah.
Always Too Soon is the book. Voices of Support for those who have lost both parents. Allison Gilbert, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We're back with more 10 right after this.
Next on 10, how healthy is your heart? Find out if you're taking care of yourself or if you could be doing a better job. And at 10:45, local chef Christina Perillo cooks up a healthy recipe for your entire family.